Hey, in case you're a new listener to Adventure Rider Radio, we've got another show that we do once a month called Raw. Adventure Rider Radio Raw. Comes out the 21st of every month. This roundtable talks about motorcycle travel. Lots of fun and some great information from well-known and connected world travelers every month. Drop by adventureriderradio.com and click on Raw Show. Philipp Amann returned to riding in his 40s after a bit of a hiatus that many people do. And he decided it was finally time for an off-road adventure. I mean, he'd seen Charlie and you, and he was looking for that kind of adventure. Maybe not quite that extreme, but to him, a good adventure. And what he chose was the Trans-European Trail, the TET, which is kind of like the backcountry discovery routes in the U.S., or the Trans-Canada Adventure Trail, the TCAT in Canada. Philipp lives in Austria, where KTM is headquartered. So you'd think that he'd be in the right place for an adventure like this. Maybe not so much. You're going to hear about that today. That was one hurdle. Another one was that he didn't have a motorcycle for the adventure, and he's green to all of this. He's new to all of this. So he's excited and he's learning as he goes, and he's using the internet to find his information. And as you're going to hear today, Philipp is committed to his goals, to learning while he goes, while he rides, hit the ground running, so to speak, and admitting when he doesn't quite have things dialed. One thing for sure, by the time Philipp was done this ride, he knew what he needed to do. I'm Jim Martin. This is Adventure Rider Radio. Stay with us. We got a good one for you.
Sam Manicott, Simon, Austin Vince, Simon Baby, Helge Pedersen, Charlie Bowman, Chris Birch,
Elizabeth Martin,
Jocelyn Snow,
Quentin Smote, and you're listening to Adventure Rider Radio.
It's wind pressure that powers the Moto Breeze chain oiler. No electrical or vacuum connections. It delivers the oil to a felt pad on your swing arm. No nozzles near your sprockets. 1 ounce of oil gets 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers. Get more miles from your chain and sprockets. motobreeze.com. And Green Chili Adventure Gear offers American-made, heavy-duty luggage systems for all types of motorcycles. You can turn any dry bag into luggage using their strapping system. And, of course, Green Chili Adventure Gear is tested in extreme weather and terrain to withstand the abuse that adventure riding gives it. Tough, reliable gear. GreenChiliADV.com. Best Rest Products is the maker of the Cycle Pump, the best tire inflator for motorcyclists. You can inflate a flat tire in less than 3 minutes. Is founded, assembled, and warranted for life in the USA. They're also the inventor and retailer of the combination tire iron / wrench, the Hex Wrench. CyclePump.com.
My name's Philipp Amann. I live in Western Austria in the state of Tyrol in a little town called Telfs. And I'm working as a professional IT security officer in my daytime job, and I do my best at trying to ride off-road in my spare time.
Philipp, welcome to Adventure Rider Radio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
As security officer, that sort of caught my ear there. It makes it sound like you're wearing a uniform and protecting a door, but then you said IT, so I'm thinking there must be something else.
Yes, well, my job is actually to implement information security management systems in companies or in the company I work for. So we basically the guys who put up the rules for the IT departments so they can do a good job in protecting the company from cyber attacks, from hijacks and stuff like that. Just trying to keep the business running, with business continuity plans. It's an awfully boring job, but it has a lot to do with risk assessment, which then again can benefit you a little bit if you want to go off-roading.
Oh, right. In life, even at that. So it's a very important job, but you don't get a uniform.
I do not get a uniform. I do have a hat, though, that says Chief Information Security Officer, and I do tend to wear it if I have to get really cross with people.
Right. That's handy. Well, you just mentioned the sort of the crossover. What I was thinking is because you're saying it's a very boring job and you're sitting a lot. You're sitting at a desk. I mean, that's what you do. So do you make an effort? Like is it part of your thing because you sit at your desk, you make an effort to get out and get physically active after work?
Absolutely. And I think it even goes a step further because my job is highly regulated. We have a lot of laws and a lot of norms and things that we have to implement. And the strange thing is, riding off-road is exactly contrary to that, because it's something where you really have to take responsibility for yourself, and you've got nobody that's put up any security borders or something when you're going on an off-road track, because it's just something where they leave you to be in charge of yourself.
Yeah, and that think of it when you're riding a motorcycle on the road. You certainly have those rules. You have all those rules you have to follow. I mean, there's still there's a lot of leeway there for us on the road. But yeah, you're right. When you get off road, it's up to you.
Exactly, and you've got your life in your own hands, and nobody's measured out the corner that's coming up and put up guardrails and everything. So it's just up to you to make the right decisions. And I think that's what really motivates me most and fascinates me most about riding off-road, because it's something I can just get out of all these really strict mindsets and really, just choose my own rules, And
of course, we're going to talk about motorcycle stuff today, but I want you to describe where you live. What is Western Austria like? What does it look like?
So Western Austria is, I live in the state of Tyrol, and Tyrol is a very mountainous country. We have the Inntal, which is basically a valley that goes from west to east, and with the Inn River in it. And north and south of the river are just high mountains up to 3,000 meters, and we live right in the middle of these mountains. So basically, we do not have a lot of space because there's mountains everywhere. And so we're just east of Switzerland, we're south of Germany, we're north of Italy. And the good thing is, I live in a part of Austria that's called the Dreiländereck, so the three country corner, because I can ride to Germany in just under half an hour. I can ride to Italy in just under an hour, and I can ride to Switzerland in 2 hours. So basically, you've got all these wonderful countries that you can go and visit in a very short period of time.
Incredible. And those rides to those countries are incredible.
They absolutely are, because you always have to go over mountains. So it doesn't matter in which direction you have to go. You always have switchbacks. You always have mountain passes that you need to go over. And I just love riding tarmac mountain passes. It's one of my biggest passions.
Were you born there, or did you end up there somehow?
Yes, I was born in Austria. But I grew up in South Africa because my parents immigrated there in the 80s, and I came back in the early 90s, and now I've been living here ever since.
Oh, incredible. Sounds like an amazing place to live. Well, you mentioned you're working at Computer Security. There was a point where you mentioned that you're sort of in your mid 40s and you wanted to do an adventure. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I've probably the same history as a lot of other of your listeners. I started riding bikes at an early age and always been riding motorcycles, and then I stopped riding them when I was in 2008 because I became a father. You do the sensible thing: you sell the bike, you buy a pram, but you try to keep in touch, or at least I tried to keep in touch with a bike world by watching documentaries. The often cited Long Way Round, Somewhere Else Tomorrow, Eric Peters DVDs, etc. And I always thought back to those times when I was riding dirt bikes in South Africa, which was always just an absolute blast, and I loved it. And it's something that you can't really do in Austria, because Austria is a very environmental friendly country on the one side, and on the other hand, we really depend on tourism a lot. So the problem is, if you have to choose as a government, are you going to allow dual sport riding, or are you going to make it possible for people to go hiking and go mountain biking? You're obviously going to take the second choice because it's more environmental friendly and it brings more money. So the Austrian government did something that's really sensible from a country's point of view. They said everything is forbidden that isn't explicitly allowed. So it never really occurred to me to go off-road riding because it simply there wasn't any possibility around me. So if you've got a logging trail somewhere, you're not allowed to ride it unless there's a sign there saying, yes, you can use this for the general traffic.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's different, isn't it? Because, of course, here, you find a road. If it's a road, it's a road. You can use it and ride whatever you want on it. So ATVs, I assume, are not big for you.
I don't think I've ever seen an ATV in Tyrol. Not a single one. I see them in Italy all the time, but there's not a single one here because nobody would buy one because it doesn't really make sense. There's no way you can ride it. So,
wow.
Yeah, road riding was just my standard go-to. But I always had this deep wish of going to the northern Cape at some stage. I wanted to go to Dakar with a motorcycle, and I also wanted to go to Ulaanbaatar at some stage. And these wishes are still there. But if you don't really have the possibility of doing any off-roading around you, then it just gets really hard because you can't practice. You can't just go for an off-road ride after work or something. You always have to really plan it. And the first off-road, real off-road road I can go to is about I'd say a 3 hours drive from my home. And so off-roading isn't really a big thing around here, which amazes me because KTM, obviously, being an Austrian company, sells a lot of LC4s and LC6 and adventure bikes.
That's right.
But most of them never see an off-road road. They all see tarmac a lot, but they never get taken off-road.
So is that all Austria that is like that? You can't ride there unless it says explicitly that you can?
Yeah, if you look at the Trans-European Trail map, the one that they have on the homepage, you can see a really big free area right in the central of Europe. And for example, there is no TET Austria. There is also no TET Czech Republic. And also in southern Germany, there's also no TET Trail at all. That's because all these countries have the same rules that say you are not allowed to ride here unless it's explicitly allowed. And so it doesn't really make sense to even try to find something because I did try it, obviously, at some stage. I ended up in a forest. I got caught and I paid a fine. So, yeah, that's just the way it is.
So it is ironic that KTM is there.
It is, yeah. But, you see a lot of polished up and scratch-free KTM bikes around here.
So it's a good place to buy a used bike.
It is.
Right. So, okay. So you get to the point where you want to do an adventure. And so talk about your choice.
So I stumbled across the Trans-European Trail Facebook page at some stage, and I started looking around on their website and saw, well, hey, there's actually a couple of sections that aren't too far away from my home. So I just have to go over the mountains down to Italy, and then there's this TET section 10 to 2. So it's basically from the Slovenian border across the whole of northern Italy, and then down the French border right down to Sanremo. Is 8 sections of the Trans-European Trail that you can legally off-road, and I got really excited when I discovered that. Because, hey, this is something I can do. It's in something I can also incorporate in my holiday, because obviously we don't have that much holiday, so we have to really plan. And I wanted to invest 5 days to really get going and go off-roading down there.
And you obviously have an idea of what the trail is like because you found the website, or you found at least the Facebook page, and you start to research that. So talk about the conditions of the trail. What are you expecting when you go?
Right. So obviously I watched hours and hours of YouTube videos, and that's a good thing about the internet. You can yeah. find almost anything.
Right.
So I watched onboard camera footage of people riding these trails, and I was a bit disappointed in the beginning, because in my imagination, obviously, because it's also stated on the Trans-European website, we have 100,000 kilometers of off-road tracks in Europe. But if you watch the videos and you really watch them from section 10 to section 2, you'll see that there's just a lot of tarmac. And in my opinion, it's about, I'd say 60% tarmac, 70% tarmac, maybe even.
Oh, wow.
And only 30% is really off-road. Because it's always just small roads that are linked together by scenic tarmac roads, and you've got short sections of off-roading, but you end up on a tarmac road after a couple of kilometers. So, especially, I went section 9 last year, and just to try some stuff with the new bike, and I actually realized that there was of the 80 kilometers of the sections that the section had, only about 12 were really off-road. So you really have to look for these roads, even in Italy.
Well, obviously, whoever's set up the route has done a real good job finding some of the few places that you can ride dirt.
They have the linesmen, that they're called linesmen, and every country has a Trans-European Trail linesman that puts these routes together. And I'm so absolutely grateful for the work that they're doing, because if it wasn't for them, none of these trails would even be known. And And you can download the GPX files from the website, and you can link it up for yourself in whatever program you're working with. And it really helps you just to find these small gems of off-road roads, which are absolutely fantastic in themselves. But obviously, you always have to take tarmac roads to find them. And they're logging roads, they're old military roads, they're There are various different types of roads, roads that have been there for hundreds of years, partially, and they find them. They also check if they are really legally rideable. And then they incorporate them in the GPX track. And it's very important that you always get yourself the newest version, because they're constantly changing.
Right.
Because every time somebody, for example, sees that a track has been closed down, then he'll tell the linesman will adapt the GPX file.
That's really good that they check the legality of it.
They do, because you can also get into really big trouble in Italy, which I discovered last year. So it's always really important to really check that you have the newest file, and always keep an eye out for signs, because the Italian government is also turning into a very environmental friendly government, and you can, especially in northern Italy, because they also realize how much they are relying on tourism. So gradually, I think a lot of these tracks are going to disappear in the coming years, because they also started to restrict the access. This can be a restriction over months. So a track that I was riding a couple of years ago has now been restricted. You can only ride it before June and after September, and in between that, it's completely forbidden to use any motorized vehicle. It's only for hikers and mountain bikers.
Oh, so it's not for weather conditions; it's for other use.
Yes, it's just for other use. And the other thing is that they also are picking up days, which I think is very sensible, because it gives both parties a chance to enjoy the tracks on their own. For the Col de Sommelier, which is the highest road you can ride in the whole of Europe, is up to 3,000 meters, and it's right on the northwestern point of Italy. What they've basically done is they've said the road will be closed to all motorized traffic. I think it's every Thursday. And that's the day when all the mountain bikers and all the hikers can enjoy it without being, buzzed by dual sport bikes or anything. And this really makes sense, because it gives the motorized traffic a chance to have fun there, but it also gives the people who are looking for a bit of peace and quiet a chance to really enjoy the scenery, because it's absolutely beautiful there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're seeing this in different parts of the world, this sharing of trails, which is great, and all parties sort of coming together and working to try and figure out what works best for everyone. We certainly see it here with snowmobile trails and use for hikers in the summertime, as well as motorcycles and ATVs and things like that. It's a difficult task, because if you don't stand up, you won't be heard. And one thing with us motorcyclists, in particular with adventure motorcyclists, is we tend to go out either by ourselves or in small groups, and there's not really, in many cases, big organizations that we join that go out there and advocate for us in these areas. So you can end up being left out when it comes to the selection process, or it comes to the planning process of a certain trail, which is one reason something like the TET is great. If you go out and you use it and you support the TET, then they're going to advocate for trails, and hopefully find these areas for you to ride. Same thing for the TCAT in Canada or the backcountry discovery routes in the US. Those things are very important for us as a community, even though we may not feel directly connected to it.
Absolutely.
So let's go back to this is your first outing, and I want to get this story. So what do you see as the challenges? You already looked at the route, you found the TET, you're going to ride this, you found these off-road sections. What's your challenges that you see that you have to overcome before you go?
Getting a bike was the first. Now I had a when I got back on bikes in 2018, I thought my kids were old enough, and it was okay if I started riding again. And obviously, living here in the Alps, I needed something that will really run well on the switchbacks, on the mountain passes. So I got myself an old Moto Guzzi, which I really love, but which is not really the bike of choice when you want to go off roading. So my vision was always to get myself a KTM 640 Adventure. I always wanted that bike, and it just looks great. It only weighs 150 kilograms. It's something that you can take on long distances, but they're expensive. And even if they're old, they still cost a decent amount of money. So my plan was to just, buy some old bike, upgrade it, because I'm a bit handy with bikes, and I'll just fix it up, I'll sell it, and then I'll get the next one until I've earned enough money to basically buy a KTM LC4.
Right.
And so the first bike in this row was an old BMW R1100GS from 1997, and I pulled that from a garage in Innsbruck, and it had been standing there for 11 years. And So I fixed it. I went all over it over the winter, and spring came, and I took it for a test ride. And the first switchback road starts about 5 minutes from my house. And when I came back, my wife looked at me and she said, "You're not going to sell that bike, are you? The way you're smiling, something just happened." I said, "Yeah, I think I won't." Because I rode this bike up the mountain, and it was such an epiphany, coming from a 30-year-old Moto Guzzi, and then I had a Honda Transalp before the kids came, and this bike was just completely different to ride. And so I started to wonder, would it be possible to use this thing off-road? Because GS means Geländestraße, which is a German word for off-road and street. So it's got to be something to it, right? And the good thing about the internet, again, is you can ask it anything you want, and it'll always give you the answer you want. So if you ask, can you make a good stew out of mice? Then you'll find 10 people with a recipe and 20 people who've done it. So I asked, obviously.
Hang on, you said that was the good thing of the internet? I think that's just that is just a phenomenon of the internet. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing.
Well, when you're looking for the fitting answer, it could be a good thing. Yeah, so I found a lot of people that told me it's okay to off-road a BMW GS, even though it weighs 250 kilograms and it's almost 30 years old. So I took that information and went from there. So I blew off the whole KTM deal, and I really loved this bike. And I thought, well, this is something I can work with. And if you watch the YouTube videos, you can see the pro riders that'll throw one of these heavy bikes around like it's nothing. And so you start thinking, well, this should work, And I took it to a quarry, and I tried to, put the bike down, pick it up. Oh yeah, that worked. I tried to go up some gravel roads. That worked as well. And that was actually my first real big mistake that I made, is that I built up too much confidence on a completely heavy bike, but unladen. Obviously, I didn't have any gear on it at all. Mm-hmm. And I went to a quarry a couple of times, and always did this for like a half an hour. I never really got tired. You don't get any fatigue, and it just everything works, and you get really overconfident. So I thought, hey, yeah, this is going to work, and I'm just going to take this heavy bike, and we're going to go off-roading.
So you're melding that little bit of experience that you're getting in your test areas, which are your ideal test areas, with all the information that you've seen up until now, long way around, all of those sorts of things. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, what's so hard about it?
Yeah, if Charlie Borman can do it, why can't I? He took the thing around the world, and I just want to go down to Italy. So
exactly,
hey, this has got to work.
What about you physically?
Yeah, that's the next thing. I wasn't really in the best shape of my life. There was 2 pregnancies in between. One was of my wife, and so I kind of went pregnant with her, and I actually gained some weight. So I was about 112 kilograms of pure. Yeah, let's just say pure me.
112 kilograms, that's 247 pounds, something like that. And you put on the weight to help your wife.
Yes, obviously I did.
Obviously, and, of course.
so that was one thing, and I wasn't really working out a lot. But I could run. I don't know, 2 miles without really breaking down. So I thought that's all right. That'll work.
Yeah.
So I then just took it from there. So I started planning.
Us riders are exposed to all kinds of weather, and that's part of the enjoyment of riding, of course. The smells, the breeze, the air. But just like your protective jacket that you wear for safety, you should also be wearing a Pearlie's Hugger for warmth. The Pearlie's Hugger is by Pearlie's Possum Socks. They're the inventor of it. The Hugger is a sweater named the Hugger because it's so incredibly soft. It's soft because it's made from, the best fibers in the world for outdoors, and it's knitted especially for us riders because the owners of Pearlie's Possum Socks are riders just like us. So these inventions are products of passion, which I absolutely love, and it shows. As soon as you get your Pearlie's Hugger, you will get it too. I'm very, very familiar with the Pearlie's Hugger because I wear mine almost every single day, even through the summer. Anytime it's cool out, I've got my Pearlie's Hugger. It is my go-to sweater for virtually everything. And if I'm not wearing it, it's stuffed into my pack because no matter how little room I have, even when I just have my little tiny dromedary bag on my back, I can always fit in the Pearlie's Hugger. And that's important because that's safety. If I get stuck riding into the night when I didn't expect it and things cool down, I put on my Hugger. Because just like Pearlie's Possum Socks, the Hugger is incredibly well made and designed. 20% New Zealand possum fur, 70% merino wool, and 10% silk. Knitted without seams, so there's no bunching up under your jacket, things that get uncomfortable. It's got a zip of the collar, and the lanolin in those fibers stops stink, simply put. You wear it as your mid-layer. And I was a wilderness guide for much of my adult life and always doing outdoors things, even still canoeing to riding my motorcycle. And over all these years, I want the best performing gear I can get. And my Pearlie's Hugger is the best mid-layer that I've ever had. PearliesPossumSocks.com is a website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. PearliesPossumSocks.com. Pack small, camp easy. I like that. That's Moto Camp Nerd's idea of motorcycle camping. Moto Camp Nerd is the motorcycle camping store. As far as I know, it's the only store that specializes in motorcycle camping gear. Ben and Mary Williams built this brick and mortar store in Archdale, North Carolina, where they say that every item they stock has been thoughtfully picked for pack size and durability specifically for motorcycle campers. That's the dilemma us riders have, is that we don't have a lot of room for motorcycle camping gear. Moto Camp Nerd has done all that work for us, finding the best, smallest, toughest gear they can get their hands on and stocking it. They're authorized dealers for brand names like Nemo Equipment, Big Agnes, Sea to Summit, and Climb. They hold inventory. They're not a drop shipper. And they say that their online orders are processed within 24 hours of receiving it Monday through Friday. That's Archdale, North Carolina, where you can walk into their store or shop online at motocampnerd.com. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio, motocampnerd.com. So hang on, back to the bike thing. So you've got this 28-year-old BMW R1100GS. Do you do anything to this? Because you fix it up to get it running. Did you do any modifications to it? Like, was this the sort of thing where you're putting on a whole bunch of things, aftermarket things?
Yeah, obviously I did, because I thought that would all help me. And so the first thing I did was I did actually do something that from my point of view is sensible. I tore down this big front fairing that the GS has. Because it's something that A, will break if you put the bike down, and B, it just for me at least, it hinders you in seeing the road in front of you. So I took all that down and I just put on a single headlight on the front, and then I put on some crash bars, which obviously added some weight, and I put on some nice big fog lights, which also added some weight, but they really look cool. I pulled them off an old rally car at a scrapyard. And I think that was about it, just make it look good. And if it looks good, it has to ride good, right?
Of course. So what was it like, the build up to the day you're going?
So I started, watching more YouTube videos and reading up on other stuff. And you can really lose yourself. It's a lot of rabbit holes. What do you have to take? What don't you have to take? And at the end of the day, I was really starting to pack on a lot of stuff, which, in hindsight, I really wouldn't need. And in the end, I think it was, I was riding around on a mobile motorcycle shop. I put every single tool I just thought I might need into a big bag. I put on hard cases. I put on aluminium panniers on the bike, because if I fall over, and it's a good thing the bike will lie on the aluminium panniers and not squash my leg, which is also pretty stupid thinking back now. So in the end, if you want me to sum it up, I put the bike has 245 kilograms stock without fuel. If you add the fuel, it's another 25 kilograms. The crash bars were 7 kilograms. The aluminium panniers with the mounts were 8 kilograms. All the lights and navigation, the bark busters, and all the other stuff was another 2 kilograms. So at the end of the day, the GS was there with 262 kilograms of weight, and that's without me and without any gear.
262 kilograms, 580 pounds, maybe just under.
Yeah. So this is one heavy bike.
Right. So do you have any idea what it was like when you loaded it up with all your gear to go, and you?
Yeah, I actually do. Because we have a recycling center around the corner here, and they have a big vehicle scale where you can put your vehicle on and yourself. And I'm not very proud of it, but the scale topped out at 436 kilograms in the end. with all the gear,
436.
with me, and with everything I took with me, which is almost half a ton.
436, over 960 pounds. Did that worry you when you saw that number?
Not really, because obviously the bike has 85 horsepower, so this is going to work somehow.
Right. So the horsepower, though, that's only one part of the equation. That's getting you going. Of course, maneuvering, picking it up, and all those other things are something extra. Yeah. So what was the TET like?
Yeah. So the TET was different than I had expected. So I went to Italy with, I actually wanted to go to Italy with 3 friends that I had planned all this with together. And then 2 of them, or actually one of them was really into off-roading. The other one was also semi-professional, let's say. And the problem was both of them had to turn me down on short notice, just 2 weeks before we wanted to leave. So the one had a crash, a major crash, and he said no, he's not going anywhere this year. And the second had some personal issues that he just couldn't overcome, so he had to turn me down as well. And I told my wife I'll be going solo, and she said no, you won't. So I had to find somebody else to accompany me, and I looked up. I put up a Facebook ad, to be honest, to ask for somebody if anybody's got time in 2 weeks' time to just come and accompany me on the TET, because I'm scared. And in the end, I found
that's what you posted.
Yes, in a bit of a longer text, but yes, that's basically what I said.
Right.
That I'm not really very eager on doing all this alone, because I need somebody to help me pick up 436 kilograms of bike. So in the end, I had 2 people that really wanted to come with me. One was Petra, which is a lady from Bavaria. Very nice lady, is a bit older than me, but she rides the German GS Trophy, and she came along with an old R80GS, which is an absolutely fantastic bike. And Wolfgang, a guy from Upper Austria, who came along on a KTM 940, I think it was. And so we decided to do this trip together, and we'd start over the Stelvio, the legendary Stelvio Pass, and then go down to Lake Como, and we'd camp for the first time, and then we'd start looking for the off-road trails.
Now, these are both experienced off-road riders with you?
Yes, she definitely is. Wolfgang also had some mediocre experience, so I was actually hoping to learn from both of them. Yeah.
Right. So she's ridden the GS Trophy. She's a top-notch rider. You've got somebody you can sort of lean on for some experience here.
Exactly. And she's also given me some of the best advice ever, and I'm really thankful for that. And I think I wouldn't have survived without her. So I'm really happy she was there with me. The reason I'm saying I was happy she was there with me was because we lost Wolfgang after the first 100 kilometers because the KTM packed in. So he had to turn around and limp the bike home, and that was very unfortunate. He did join us for the next year, but so it was just Petra and me doing this trip together.
Okay, talk about that.
So the first run should have actually been down to Lake Como, but in the end we decided we'd leave out all the northern TET routes, and we'd go straight for the Upper Salt Road, which is also a part of the Italian TET, because we'd already lost a day due to the mechanical problems of the KTM, and I only had 5 days to my disposal for this trip. So we went down to Barolo, where the good Barolo Rosso wine comes from, which is about 60 kilometers north of the Col de Tende, where the Upper Salt Road, the Alta Via del Sale, actually starts. And we actually chose that because the Upper Salt Road is a toll road where you pay, I think, 15 euros of toll, and it's kept very well. That means it's a road where every morning and every evening somebody goes along. You've got basically a sweeper van that goes through that also checks if are there any big boulders in the street and on the road, and clears them. They check for any other landslides and everything. So you can always be sure that you've got a safe road in front of you. And it's a normal gravel road. It used to be a part of the Maginot line, and there's a lot of cool falls you can visit on the way down. And it was just an absolutely awesome road, and I thought this would be a good start. Something where I can really find my pace and get to know this whole off-roading a big bike thing.
You said gravel road. What condition is the gravel?
Well, from the videos I saw, it was a hard top with just a little bit of loose gravel on the top. And I was really confident about that. What I didn't know is that you don't see everything in videos. So it did turn into a really scary road later on with a lot of rough, loose gravel. But you grow with your experiences. So it's a bit more of it was a bit more of a challenge than I had actually expected it to be.
Okay, well, you started out, everything seems fine.
Yeah, we started out in Tender and started riding the first meters off road, and so Petra gave me a really good advice. He said, "Look, always decide on the track, focus on the track, don't look at your front tire, and just follow it through." And that became like a mantra in my head, obviously in German, but the same thing over and over again, and that really helped me because she told me, you ride where you look, and she was absolutely right. So if you start looking right in front of your wheel, first of all, the 2 meters in front of your front wheel have already happened. There's nothing you can do about them. So you always have to plan ahead. And I really tried that, and I think that really kept me out of a lot of big trouble because I'm somebody that does tend to, get a bit panicky, and then I started to look in front of the bike and look further forward. And it also helps you to relax a bit. You start loosening the grip on the handlebars because you know where you're going and the bike knows where it's going, and it really helped me.
Yeah, you're not thinking as fast. When you're looking right in front of you, that ground is, as you said, it's already happening. So you tend to be very panicked. But when you look ahead, you have much longer period of time to react. I mean, even though it's a short period of time, but it's much longer than looking right in front of you. So it is more relaxing, right off the bat.
Exactly. And so I can't remember anything about the scenery of this first day because I was just concentrating on not falling over, which almost worked. And I learned the hard way that if you start getting cocky and you start going a bit faster, the next bend is just around the corner, and you are going to use the front brake, which I did, and obviously I dropped the bike the first time, and yeah, that's something that put me back in my place a bit, and I really started being more careful again.
The BMW you're riding doesn't have ABS.
No, the BMW does not have ABS. It's the old model without ABS, and I've actually never owned a motorcycle with ABS before, right. And I still don't. But
so that front brake, I mean, which is fantastic. That's what you want to use in most cases. But of course, as it gets slippery, you've got to use less of that front brake and be aware of what's going on. So you just happened to pull it on too hard and went down?
Right. I pulled it too hard, I went down, put the bike on the left-hand side, and I broke both indicators. I really dented up my pannier. Obviously, I got my foot stuck under the pannier, which I thought would not happen. The funny thing is, you go into a kind of a panic mode. First of all, you want to get out from the bike as fast as possible, which kind of worked, and then you want to put the bike up on its stand as fast as possible because you don't want the next rider to come along and laugh at you and say, "Hey, so you dropped your tank, did you?" And that was stupid again because in this panic, I actually really overstretched a ligament in my right hand because I was just putting so hard on the bike to put it back up because I didn't take the panniers off first and take the luggage off first. I just tried to set it straight right away. And that's something where I still have a little bit of weather station in my right hand. I can still feel that today. So I could have actually saved myself from that injury.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And this is just on the main road. This was supposed to be a non-issue for you.
Right. This was supposed to be a non-issue, and the rest of the road was. And that's something that really dawned on me already while we were riding. Usually I plan a lot of trips. I plan a lot of road trips, and I always plan them with a bit of space in the back, so you don't really have to stress yourself. So it's 400 kilometers a day, 450 kilometers a day, which is fine with the guys that I ride with. Now for this trip, I had actually planned to the Upper Salt Road is 30 kilometers long from toll booth to toll booth, and so all right, so you'll be going at an average of about let's be generous, say 20 kilometers an hour. So you'll take about 1.5 hours of pure riding. So let's double that, so it'll be 3 hours. And yeah, we'll work with 3 hours. And I couldn't have been more wrong because 3 hours on a gravel road like the Upper Salt Road is absolute nonsense. You'll be using double that again. And so we reached the southern toll booth, and it was already, I'd say, about 3:00 in the afternoon. So we started out at 8 in the morning, and it took us till 3:00 in the afternoon just to go those 30 kilometers. And that's when I made a really stupid second decision, because now the Upper Salt Road consists basically of two parts. It's the toll road, which is the northern part, which is really well kept and is really great. And then there's a southern part, which can take you almost right down to the coast, which is not well kept and which is actually a really rough road. And so Petra was absolutely she was in her paradise. You know, she loved every meter of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she looked at me and said, "Well, do you want to go on, or do you want to, go to the tarmac? Because you can basically just go down the mountain, and then you're on tarmac, and you can take the tarmac road right down to the coast." And stupid me said, "No, let's take the other part of the salt road while we're here. Can't be that hard, can it?" And yeah, so the southern part is really large gravel, steep downhill. And it's a really wavy switchback road that goes along cliffs. So you've got a 400 meter drop on the right hand side. You've got a road that's about 2.8 meters wide, and then you've got a basically vertical cliff coming up the left side on the left hand side.
400 meters, 1,200 feet, something like that. Wow,
something like that. It's absolutely it's. But I wasn't really worried about the drop because I didn't have time to even look at that in that direction. I was just trying to focus to survive the road itself. And so I was creeping down there at about 4 to 5 kilometers an hour, really, always not blocking the rear brake, but just braking down and going slowly. And then something happened that I still have nightmares about. I can see oncoming traffic. And there was this, do you get Unimogs? These big Mercedes trucks?
Oh, no, not really. You'll see the odd one that gets shipped here. Somebody will have a smaller one.
Okay.
But so Unimog is like, I guess the closest thing we would have to it is maybe an off-road logging truck.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like an off-road logging truck, but he had a big camper on the back, and he was using the whole breadth of the road, and he was coming towards me. And it was one of these really expensive vehicles. Mm-hmm. And the driver was looking panicky because I think he was already at the end of his nerves, and his wife was looking very unhappy next to him. And if you looked at them, you could see the whole story in one instance. She wanted to go camping, he wanted to do a bit of off-roading, and both are not happy on the spot that they're actually just in.
Right.
So he stops, and I try to stop, which is more difficult. It's about a 20% incline on this road. So somehow I managed to stop the BMW, and now there's two elephants basically meeting there, and none of us wants to budge.
Are you on the outside or the inside?
I was riding on the inside because I was just afraid of the outside.
Right. So you should have been on the outside.
I should have actually been on the outside. So the problem was that there was no getting past him because this truck was so wide, he couldn't even get out of the car. If we had opened the door and stepped out, he would have fallen down into the valley. So,
oh, wow.
So we were trying to figure out how we're going to get past each other. And so at the end of the day, I had to take off the panniers off the BMW and put them right against the cliff. I had to shove the bike right up against the cliff as far as it would go. I had to stand with my back against the cliff, and he was edging past me, which took days in my, the way I felt it, but he was probably passing in about 20 minutes. But he was edging himself, and his wife was looking down, to not run me over, and he was checking that he wasn't going over the cliff, and it was just absolutely it was petrifying for all of us.
I bet, and he's on the outside, right on the very edge. Yeah, he's got to be really worried.
I'm sure he was. And it's just something that you always have to reckon with, that you'll have oncoming traffic. And if I just thought about that for a second, I wouldn't have taken that road.
Where was Petra while this was happening?
Yeah, she was far ahead, and I actually texted her and told her, listen, got a bit of a traffic jam here. This is going to take a while. And so she waited a couple of miles in front, because she was always taking off, and then she was coming back because she was just having the time of her life,
Yeah.
And which is okay. I mean, I don't want to keep her or slow her down. So we always just said to tell you'll wait for me at the next crossing, or wait for me at the next crossroads, and if you have to wait too long. And come back, something may have happened. And we communicated really well, and it worked really well.
That's an incredibly tight road, though. So do you end up meeting more vehicles?
Thankfully not. I think I would have really just put the bike down and walked home. But in the end, and the really bad thing about this road is it tends to make fun of you, because then all of a sudden it'll go into a nice forest road, even with bits of tarmac on it, because these are old military roads that just aren't kept very well. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden you're on a decline again with rough gravel. So it'll give you this short, hey, you've done it. You actually haven't done it yet.
Right. Wow. And this isn't the TET, is it?
The upper salt road is part of the TET.
Oh, it is.
So
Okay.
it's part of section 2 of the TET. So they've actually incorporated it into the TET, and the TET is very similar to the second part of the upper salt road. So it's always old military roads. Partially, they could have been tarmac at some stage, but they're not anymore. Which are, in my opinion, the most difficult roads to ride, because you've always got big patches of tarmac with big holes and washouts between them, and they can really dent your rim or something if you hit them in a wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, you didn't see videos of the lower salt road with a Unimog passing somebody.
No, I didn't. And if I did, I think I would have been more sensible and taken the easier way down to San Remo then.
Did you get any photos while this was going on?
No, I must have some video footage of that somewhere, because I had the GoPro running on the bike, but it was facing forward, and you can see the Unimog. You can't see him edging by. I have to look for that stuff, but I was just too petrified to take any pictures. I was trying to, just not get run over.
What happens next?
So we went down to San Remo, and I always had this vision of putting up my tent at the beach and having the first night after off-roading and somewhere at the beach, have some shish kebab or something there and really enjoy it. But to be honest, I just wanted a hotel, and I talked to Petra and said, listen, can we just get a hotel somewhere? I need some decent sleep, because I'm at the end of my energy, and I knew this is fatigue. This is real fatigue. I was just tired. And I hadn't reckoned with the energy it takes to off-road 60 kilometers if you're doing this for the first time and on a heavy bike. I was sore the next days because my muscles were cramping, because they weren't used to standing up that much. It's something different if you're in the quarry and you're standing up for about, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Or if you're standing up for hours on end, because that's just what you have to do, because you can't ride those roads sitting down.
Mm-hmm. And mentally fatigued. Which is
Absolutely.
really probably
Absolutely.
even more so.
Absolutely. Yeah, the mental fatigue actually showed itself late at night, because I obviously had to start fixing the bike. I had to fix the indicators, because otherwise you can potentially run to a fine again. So I fixed those, and I had to fix my headlight as well, because the headlight was really badly dented, and it was kind of pointing upwards. So I took the headlight off the bike, and I was actually quite happy to have all my blacksmith stuff with me. So I got out the quarter-pounder hammer and went to the hotel room. I really did have a quarter-pounder hammer with me.
Wow! And
I went to the hotel room and I started fixing the headlight. Sometime later, I finished the headlight. There's a knock at the door, and I thought it was Petro who wanted to talk about the next day. And I opened the door, and there's this gigantic Holland guy standing in front of me. This guy from Holland standing in front of me, and he wasn't looking very, very happy. And I looked at him and said, "Can I help you?" And he says, "Yes. Do you know what time it is?" And I looked at my watch. I said, "Yeah, it's 1:30." I said, "Yes, my wife would like your hammer." And so I gave him the hammer, and then I can hear myself saying, "Well, please tell her to be quiet with it, because I'm going to try get some sleep now." And I wasn't really trying to be funny.
You didn't even get the point.
No. I was just so mentally exhausted. I wasn't even trying to be funny. I was just like, yeah, she can have it, but just be quiet, because I'm going to try. Because, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So they did actually return the hammer to me. It was leaning by the bike the next morning.
Oh, he took it. He actually took the hammer.
He really took it. Yeah, he took it and he went away. I think he needed something to prove to his wife that there won't be any more noise coming from the room next door. So they actually returned the hammer. It was leaning on the bike the next morning. I was really thankful that he didn't, wedge it into the tank or something.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to Petra and told her that I think my off-roading days are over. And she wasn't really disappointed. She said she already had a great experience. But let's go north through the West Alps, which is a lot of tarmac roads, and which is actually the roads I also really enjoy. But I didn't want to leave out the Col de Parpagnon, which has been a dream of mine for ages. Now, the Col de Parpagnon is an old military tunnel that connects two valleys in France. It's a 500-meter tunnel, which is completely off-road inside. There's no tarmac, nothing. You have to go up a really long gravel road, which is also a gravel pass to the southern portal, and you come out in one of the most beautiful parts of France on the northern portal, which is a ski resort in winter. And I've always wanted to ride this tunnel because it's just the videos I've seen. It must be a completely new experience, going through a pitch black tunnel on a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
So we went up north and we went through the tunnel, which was absolutely fantastic. And I actually found my way back into liking off-roading because Petra forced me to take it easy, to go slow, and I realized it can be fun, just not on this bike and not with this weight. And yeah, that about sums it up for my first off-road experience. I know that I was absolutely exhausted when I came home. I know that I was really wondering if this is for me, if this is something I want to do again,
Mm-hmm.
because there was just so much high adrenaline moments and so many panicky moments and so much that could potentially have gone much more wrong if I didn't have luck on my side.
Yeah, and that's really the difficult part, isn't it? That's the part that will turn you off is when you feel like you're out of your comfort zone. Not even just out of your comfort zone, where you feel like you don't have a clue what to do, really, that you've got in way over your head. And then you start questioning, is this really for me?
And the problem is that if you're somewhere in the middle of the Alta Via del Sale, you have no alternative. You can't just say, okay, I'm done. I don't want to go any further because what are you going to do? Are you going to walk home? And that's what really, puts pressure on you. And that's where I really started to feel I'm way out of my comfort zone and I really want this to end soon.
Mm-hmm. You're so lucky to have had Petra go along with you, though, because you could have come out of this with a different feeling where you wouldn't, because I know you've been back in riding since then in dirt. It could have made it just so you say, okay, forget this bike. I'll just stick with my Moto Guzzi and stay on the pavement.
Exactly. I think without her, I would have given up. I would have turned around at the end of the salt road, just gone onto the highway and ridden home. So I was really happy that she was there with me. Yeah.
I think most of us riders can really appreciate this thought process, that lighter is better, that where we ride shouldn't be restricted by what's strapped on our motorcycles, and that riding is just more fun when that unnecessary weight and bulk are removed. I really think that's tough to argue with. That is the Giant Loop difference, and they've built an entire luggage system that is modular, customizable, yet stable, durable, and lightweight. And they did it by following the product's mission. So they do away with all the extra straps and buckles that you often see on this sort of thing that are usually just flopping around in the wind and getting caught on branches and things. Instead, they concentrated on building lightweight, durable, modular packing systems that are stable when they're put onto your bike. Packing solutions for riding that you can count on for years to come, like many of riders around the world have already done. Go light, go fast, go far with Giant Loop. The website is giantloopmoto.com. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. giantloopmoto.com. Most riders will be standing on their pegs a fair bit when adventure riding because there's just so many advantages to it. But when you stand, you need added leverage, which you get through a wider platform on the foot peg. But you also need a peg that increases the connection between your boot and the peg because you're standing now. But it also has to do this without messing up the geometry between your boots and your gear shifter and your brake pedal. And as well, they need to be incredibly tough, yet not brittle. Now, this may sound easy, but it takes a tremendous amount of engineering to accomplish that. And that is just what IMS Products does with their foot pegs. They've got a full line of adventure motorcycle foot pegs, enough to suit any riding style. And IMS started way back in 1976, and they put everything they've learned into producing this line of adventure motorcycle foot pegs. And you know how they know they've nailed it? How we all know they've nailed it? Because they offer a lifetime warranty. And the only time you can do that is when you produce the highest quality product. So you know that it's a rare chance that someone's going to come in with a warranty claim. So us riders win huge by having pegs that not only look great, but are engineered to the best abilities. And they're made with 17.4 cast certified stainless steel. And on top of all that, IMS Products foot pegs are made in the USA. IMSproducts.com is the website. Anytime you're dealing with them, throw in there that you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. IMSproducts.com.
So when you get home and you sort of decompress and look back on what did you learn? What did you figure out?
I actually, now this is where the job kicks in again. I started making a list of things that went wrong, and to really give myself some lessons learned. And I think the first thing was, for me, bodily fitness is a must-have. I was in a really bad shape when we left, and so I decided to, before I go off-roading again, I really want to get myself into shape. So I want to lose some weight. I want to build up muscle. I want to also get my leg muscles in a decent shape where I can really stand a lot. And that was really one of the biggest game changers for me, being more fit. And I'm probably the only person that rides a Stelvio and the Passo Rombo and everything standing up on his bike. It looks absolutely stupid riding tarmac standing up, but it really trains your legs. So that's something that really made a big difference. I mean, I lost, I think, 12 kilograms or something over that year to the next time, and that really helped me a lot.
I guess, you don't have to stand up on your motorcycle necessarily to get your legs in shape. You could go to the gym and do squats or whatever it is. You could do different things, go for hiking, things like that. But it's interesting that when I ask you, what did you learn from this? The first thing you go to is your physical self, your body. You feel like that was one of your biggest problems.
I kept a diary on the way down, and one of the things that I noticed was not what I'd written, but how I'd written it, and my handwriting was completely shaky. And I remember just having no more energy left in me to really, write with a nice handwriting. And I remember being, when you start getting the jitters on the bike, because you notice your power is running out. You don't have any more power in your hands to pull the clutch. You don't have any more power to hold the throttle. And that's where everything, hey, this can't be it. I need to get more strength, more energy, more stamina into me.
And the problem is that affects how you ride. It affects your decisions. It affects everything that you do on the motorcycle.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the second thing I wrote down was that, it's such a frequent question on the internet, in the forums and the Facebook groups that I'm in, is can you ride a heavy bike off road? And the answer is obviously yes, you can, but it's just not fun. And if you look at all the videos and of the pros that do it, what I didn't realize was, they're doing it without gear. They're doing it for a short period of time, and it makes them look fantastic. But if you want to take this bike with all the gear that you want to take with you, and you want to do this for days on end, then it's just a completely different story. So I love the torquey engine that this Boxer has. You can ride it in second gear all day long. That was great, but that was about it. Everything else just made this bike feel like an aircraft carrier that you're trying to maneuver somehow through a fjord, and that was just no fun at all.
Well, and to each their own, because there are some people who will ride their loaded heavy adventure bike and love it. And the thing is, like I don't have it now. I've got a smaller bike now, but I had an F800GS. And part of my enjoyment with that was riding it loaded with all my camping gear and everything through some stuff that it should never be in. And it was fun. Like that was part of the challenge. Now, the part that wasn't fun, of course, was anytime I went off trail, anytime I dropped it, those type of things. Obviously, it gets heavy. It's hard to pick up. Not as heavy as the R1100, although maybe the R1100 would be easier to pick up because your cylinder heads stick out and sort of stop it from falling right over flat. So there's a thrill to it of riding this bike where it shouldn't really go. So it all depends, I think, of your mindset or what you want out of your ride.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I'm telling you the story from a beginner's point of view, obviously. So for me, it was a completely wrong bike to do this. I think there's a lot of riders out there who are much better than I am, and they probably have a blast with a heavy bike, even doing the Alta Via del Sale or the other TET tracks. But if you're a novice like I was, then it's just the completely wrong bike for you.
Well, and you can't get around the physics of it, because the physics are that the big heavy bike is more work to handle off-road. They're just hands down, no doubt about it. You can't deny that, even for a highly experienced rider. So you're going to use a lot more energy. It's going to be a lot more stressful to ride that big bike. And that's something you have to be aware of when you're going in, maybe adjust how far you plan to go or how much you plan to do or how long you plan to ride, all those sorts of things. Those are the physics that you can't get around. The lighter bike, if you put that same highly skilled rider on a lighter bike, they'll go much farther with much less energy. And that's obvious because that's why they make lighter bikes for off-road.
Exactly, and that's something that actually brings you to the third point. Planning is key, because what I also didn't realize in the beginning was that if you're going off road in Europe, or at least in this part of northern Italy, you'll find a lot of switchback roads. Now, taking the BMW on a switchback road, a switchback gravel road, is just so exhausting, because every corner is hard work, and it doesn't matter if you're going uphill or downhill; it's always hard work. And I could really also feel my energy levels just going down after the 100th or 150th switchback, because there are a lot of them. If you're going, you're constantly going up and down the mountains, and you're constantly riding switchbacks, you're really going to just tire out. And so that's really something that I, for myself, have seen that planning is absolutely key, and I have to give it much more time if I'm planning for on off-road trips than I would usually do on tarmac. So I've really extended the amount of days that I would usually plan for a trip of maybe 200 kilometers off-road than I had before.
And bike choice for these things, it's really subjective. There's so much that goes into bike choice, obviously, and that's why no one can tell you what bike is for you. I was just thinking back to talking with Simon Pavey about Long Way Round, and he was, I was mentioning something about KTMs, and because they didn't get the KTMs, if you remember from the video. What the point that Simon made was that people don't realize when they watch the movie how much of their riding was on tarmac. And when they're riding the tarmac, those bikes they had were absolutely fantastic for riding those long stretches of tarmac. So you got to sort of weigh it up. How much of off-road are you doing? How serious are you going to be riding off-road versus on-road? Because if you had been riding a 125 and 80 or 90% of your riding is on tarmac, it might not be near as fun as if you'd had your R1100.
That's a brilliant point. And like I said in the beginning, when I want to go off-roading, I always have to ride at least 3 hours from my home, and I would do that on tarmac, obviously. Mm-hmm. And the BMW is absolutely fantastic on tarmac. I love the bike, and I still have it. I didn't sell it. It's just a bike that is too heavy for me to off-road. It still is, and that's why I switched to a different bike now. But to get to the places you want to off-road, it's just fantastic, because the problem is it's pretty hard to find a place where you can leave a car in a trailer in Italy or in Austria and Germany without having to pay a lot of money for it. Mm. So it's always a better choice to just be able to go there with your bike and then start off-roading. But that means you have to have something that is versatile enough to do mountain passes, to do autobahns or the freeways, but also to be able to off-road. And that's why the bike you mentioned, the F800, is one of the guys that came with us the following year had an F800, and I was a bit envious of him because he made everything look so easy, because the bike was the perfect tool for doing everything.
Right. So he had the power for the highway, yet he had some sort of mobility off-road.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
What else did you learn with this?
I also learned that I do not have to be a riding motorcycle shop. The awkward thing is, out of all the stuff I packed, the only thing I really needed was that stupid hammer. I had packed so much. But, to put this in perspective, I work with risk management, so I try to mitigate risks as best I can. So at some stage, I was actually contemplating on taking an electrical winch with me, and that would have added another, I think, 6 kilograms. So mm-hmm. I was trying to be prepared for everything, and that's just something I have to take a step back from, and just tell myself, if something really bad happens, then I'll have to either rely on maybe somebody else to help me, or I'll have to find another way out. But I don't have to be prepared for everything and have every single tool that I could possibly need,
Yeah, and that is part of risk management, isn't it? Because you have to look at things and say that, be realistic about your surroundings. In other words, like, it's one thing to be independent. We all want to be independent. You want to be able to get yourself in and out. You mentioned taking the winch. Some people may chuckle at that, but Warren made a winch, the XT17, I think they called it, for motorcyclists, just for that, for the big bikes. And if you were traveling by yourself and you're going to do something like the BAM road or something like that, where there's not going to be, or a good chance there won't be anyone come along, then the winch would make perfect sense if you're thinking of risk management. But if you're taking all this gear and there's vehicles passing you all the time and there's a possibility to get help come in, yeah, it makes you you'd have to rethink that, wouldn't you? And say, well, does it make sense to load myself down with all this weight for all this riding just to be independent?
Exactly. When you ride the TET in Europe, you're never too far away from civilization. Yeah, it's something completely different if you're in the middle of nowhere in Australia or in the Western USA.
Yeah.
Here you'll always have. 90% of the way you'll have cell phone coverage, so you're never really far away from calling for help.
Right.
And so that really made me rethink the amount of stuff I really wanted to take with me. And so I've really reduced that drastically. I've come down to, I think it's about 14 or 15 kilograms of gear, including all the camping gear, because I've just lightened that down. I wasn't quite prepared to throw a lot of money in that in the beginning, but I realized it really does make sense to have a light tent, to have a light sleeping bag, to have a light mat to go under it, and it just saves a lot of weight, and you can really downsize everything, and it makes riding so much more enjoyable.
And you dumped a bunch of those tools, and you got a bigger hammer and cut the handle off of it so that you save some weight.
I actually got a plastic hammer, and that really works well. It does 90% of the job, and it only weighs 20% of the weight. So
is that right? Well, you'd make Sam Manicom smile for sure. You definitely should cut the handle down on that hammer, though.
Yeah, maybe that'll give me a couple of grams. I can shave some off. But you can always use a stone, can't you?
Right, you can.
Go back to the Stone Age.
And I've done that before. I don't carry a hammer. That's one thing that I don't carry with me, but to each their own. Sam Manicom, who I mentioned there, is on a Raw show. He carries a rubber mallet, I think he carries, for pounding in his tent pegs.
Yeah, so that's actually what I use the plastic hammer for now as well, because usually the earth is so stony that you get a hard time. You have a hard time getting those tent pegs in. So that's really something that's
right.
At the end of the day, you've had a long day of riding. The last thing you want to do is start arguing with the ground to accept that peg.
Exactly.
So. and it's the small things, like not taking the whole roll of duct tape, but just taking like 2 meters of it and putting it around the small can of chain lubricant that you may have with you. And it can really downsize all the stuff that you have with you. So that was really, really something that helped me out a lot.
You pointed out the hard panniers were a problem for you. So do you still use hard panniers?
No, I got rid of them immediately, because that was something that not only I experienced being a dangerous situation with the bike, like falling on top of my leg. I think with soft bags, it wouldn't have hurt that much, because I also have to admit I didn't have hard boots the first time. I had something that had adventure written all over it. So I thought this would be fine, but it wasn't. So now I've upgraded those to some proper, hard off motocross boots. But I got rid of the panniers. And this also obviously lets you get rid of all the framework that you need to mount them, the whole mounting kit. So that lost a lot of weight, and I'm just using some really lightweight bags now where I can just fit everything in, and that works perfectly.
Mm-hmm. But you've also switched bikes. You're not riding the 1100.
I rode the 1100 a second time to Italy, which was already a lot more fun, because I just, got rid of a lot of stuff, and that really worked well. I also upgraded the suspension on the bike, which also made a lot of difference, but it was still too heavy. And so in the end, I ended up test riding a KTM 640 on one of these rides, which was really a great bike. But I noticed, and this is something we were talking about before, he was really having a hard time getting there, because the 640 with the luggage tended to wobble a lot on the freeway. So it was actually an Adventure Rider Radio episode that pointed me into the direction of the XT660Z. Spencer Conway is using that bike to go around the world. And I had a look at that bike, and it was just love at first sight, because I test rode it, and it's just brilliant. I'm 1.86 tall, and the bike is rather tall as well. I loved it. Everything was perfect from the beginning. When I stood up, I could see everything I wanted to see. The handlebars were at the right height. It was just a brilliant bike. And what I love about it most is it has an incredible range of 530 kilometers on one tank filling.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I fell in love with that bike, and I bought it in. And I think it's kind of like the F800. It's the best of both worlds. You can really take it on the autobahn and go 130 kilometers an hour for hours on end, and then just turn right and go right off-roading if you want to. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, no, it looks like a great bike. I've never had one of those. So let me ask you about the as far as, because this was your big problem, or one of the big issues was your inexperience in riding in dirt, and that's the stuff that causes you so much stress. Although passing that truck, to me, that's going to be stressful, but a lot of the other things. So since then, did you take any riding lessons in dirt?
Yes, I did take riding lessons. Maybe not the best ones I could have taken. I signed up for another course next year, 2025, which will be a 2-day course. So I think I really did get a lot of good people around me that really helped me a lot. So I think learning on the job, as you would say, is the experience I have at the moment. And I was just really, really lucky to have professional riders around me. In the last 2 times I was in Italy, who really pointed out my mistakes, who told me things I could do better, posture. And it's just so much that you realize it's small things that can make a big difference. Having the right posture on the bike can really relax your arms, for example. And I can't stress enough how important these things are. And I think everybody should really, before you start going off-roading, you should take a course and have some professional point that out. I should have done that from the beginning. And that's why I'm going to catch that up next year, because I really want to hear it from a professional in a concentrated way and on a weekend that he can show me what to do. One of my personal heroes is somebody that you have on your show quite often. Clinton Spout has, apart from his fantastic stories that he tells, he has so much really important and valuable information that he passes on. And I've been really taking notes from his episodes, and so. Yeah, getting somebody professional to teach you to ride off-road is essential, because when I do about 17 to 18,000 kilometers on tarmac a year, and I consider myself a decent motorcycle rider.
Yeah.
But if you go off-road, it just nothing is that you've learned on tarmac is applicable.
Yeah, it's almost like you're a downhill skier and then you go cross country, or the other way around.
Right, exactly. It's just completely different, and you're learning again from the beginning. Yeah.
Philip, you do risk management for a living. Can you just sort of briefly talk about risk management and how we would use it for planning a motorcycle trip?
So risk management is basically, you have risks, you have something to mitigate your risk, and you have a rest risk that'll just stay over that you can't mitigate. And if you have this it's a kind of a healthy paranoia that I live in my job, but you have to lose that on the motorcycle, because the more paranoid you get, like I am, the more risk you're going to try to mitigate, and the more you're going to start fantasizing about things that can go wrong, and that's when you start packing 60 kilograms of gear onto a bike. So in the end, it actually makes sense, and it's something that I do for my daytime job, is to just like draw the small matrix and saying this is how this is what could happen. Think of some of the scenarios and how likely is it going to happen, and what's the impact going to be. And you often realize some of the things that might have a high likeliness of coming along won't really impact you a lot, and the other way around. And so it's kind of important to find the sweet spot in the middle. Take the risks that are really major risks that really have a high likelihood of occurring and really have a high impact on you, and try to mitigate those. Easy example: it's highly likely that you'll have a flat tire. So you're obviously going to take the stuff that you need to fix it, because the impact is you can't ride your bike anymore if the tire is really, really busted. If it's highly likely you're going to run out of gas, you're obviously going to take some gas with you. But it's not really likely that you're going to meet a Unimog. It might happen, but there's nothing you can do against it. So it's just a risk you're going to have to live with.
Right. But how about taking the winch, for instance?
The winch, you made a really good point before. If you're in the middle of nowhere and you know that there's nobody that's going to come along to help you, and you have to get yourself out of trouble. If your bike slides down the hillside and you can't pull it up by yourself, then a winch makes absolute sense. If you know that you're in the middle of Italy and the next car is just like 5 minutes away, the winch won't make sense, because there'll be off-road cars coming along that all have a winch with them, and they're always going to help you. Mm-hmm. So it's just, always play through the scenarios in your head and really be honest to yourself. Am I going to need this, or aren't I going to need this? And
don't focus so much on just your incident. In other words, your motorcycle is stuck. How do I get it unstuck? You sort of got to step back and say, what are the resources around? And then that's all of a sudden when you realize, well, I'm only within half a kilometer of a highway. I'm going to be fine.
Exactly. And also, I don't really like riding alone. So you've always got at least 2 or 3 people going with you, and they'll have gear with them as well. So it's also very important you can spread out stuff. One takes the hammer, one takes the winch, one takes the and so on,
Right. I still have to chuckle about the hammer. Philip, that was great to talk with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
I was speaking with Philipp Amann from his home in Austria. We've got some photos from Philipp's adventures, as well as links all in the show notes for this episode at our website, adventureriderradio.com. Hey, I just want to remind you that this episode has been brought to you by Green Chili Adventure Gear, greenchiliadv.com, Motobreeze Chain Oiler at motobreeze.com, and Best Rest Products at cyclepump.com. And we'd really appreciate it if anytime you're dealing with these companies, anytime email or otherwise, let them know you heard them here on Adventure Rider Radio. That about wraps up another episode of Adventure Rider Radio, and we sure hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we did making it. Special thanks to our producer, Elizabeth Martin, and of course you. Thank you very much for being a part of this by listening to the show. Hey, if you can, if you like what you're hearing here, we would really appreciate it if you give us a review somewhere where you're finding your podcast, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Go in there and give us a 5-star review. I'm hoping for a 5-star. I hope that's not presumptuous of me to ask for that, but that will help other people find the show. We would greatly appreciate it if you could do that. Share it on social media, whatever you can do to help other people find the show. It's surprising. We've been doing this for over 10 years now, and we still get people who are brand new to it. So that's really interesting, and it's fun to hear. And the other thing is the show is built on a model of advertising and listener support. We need your support. I mean, really, there's so many people, I'm talking tens of thousands that listen to the show, and yet we only get a very, very small percentage of people that actually support the show. Please be one of those people that support. Drop by our website, adventureriderradio.com, click on support. It's a bunch of different ways you can do it. It can cost you as little as you want to put out. Just think of the enjoyment you get from the show and the other one that we do with Raw, and then, do what you feel is right. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. My name is Jim Martin. Now it's time to get out there and ride your bike if you can. I'll talk to you next week.
Hi, this is Charlie Borman, and you're listening to Adventure Rider Radio.